So once you've been through that process, obviously the best case scenario is that you've managed to kind of satisfy yourselves that everything is tolerable or allowed and that there's no kind of further areas of concern. However, that's not always the case. So in the event of identifying any non-compliant assets, so generally that might be kind of elements within a building, or it could be the whole building itself, depending on how severe the item that you flagged are. There's then a whole sort of follow-up process of further investigation, further review. There's different ways of dealing with that. So it might be that it's a series of kind of more detailed analysis. So you might then go to finite element assessment or kind of more complicated calculation to either try and prove that something does actually work. If it's, say, a member that's smaller than you might expect it to be, it might be that it works perfectly fine if you do the kind of more detailed investigation. But again, it's this proportionate approach. So making sure that you don't go straight to building a finite element analysis model of the building on day one. It's more working through the process. And if you get to the point where you've got questions that you can only answer by doing a more detailed analysis, that's where it becomes proportionate. Alternatively, this is obviously all based around risk. So the other way of viewing it is how can you control the hazard in a different way? So if the concern is that a particular column is sensitive to vehicle impact, rather than trying to kind of redesign and assess that column, you could potentially introduce some sort of vehicle barrier or other method of preventing that column from being subject to the vehicle impact in the first place. That's obviously part of a wider conversation with the principal accountable person, and you need to make sure that everything is joined up and that they're kind of on board with any proposals. But it's a bit different to obviously a new build design where generally there's a way that you could kind of design something out. Here, the building already exists, so your hands are tied in a way that they aren't necessarily on a new build structure, and you need to think accordingly. Similarly for fire resistance issues, I mean, this is obviously very much been in the press around cladding issues and everything else. As I mentioned, if there are fire resistance issues in relation to the actual structure itself, that can be trickier, and there's definitely a need to interface with the fire engineer to work out how best to address those. And it could be as far as actually doing full-blown fire engineering assessment and modelling. It's again just a case of making sure that approach is proportionate at all times.